The MEMS World Summit welcomes to the stage Giacomo Tonti. Giacomo Tonti is currently serving as a Semiconductor Division Sales Manager at Osai Automation Systems. With a background in electronics and telecommunications, he has expertise in semiconductor testing, project management, and business development, specifically in standard products and turnkey test cell solutions for global key players in the semiconductor industry.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our test, characterization, and measurement panel discussion for today. You know, when we talk about products and all the engineers that participate in the development and manufacturing of those products, most of them work in the simulation space, or they're observing what they've constructed, maybe a thickness, a line width, general size. When we, those simulation engineers and those construction engineers that are building those products, you ask them, does this work? And they say, well, I think so. I simulated it, so I think so. It looks good. It's got a line width, and it looks about right. But it's the test engineers. The test engineers are the only ones that can actually talk to the patient and find out how that patient is feeling today. Because of that, they're the only ones that actually know if the product works. So we're lucky to have some of the leaders in that space with us today. So we'll ask a few questions and let's get into a nice panel discussion. All right, first question is, what are the types of markets and applications that are driving the MEMS and sensors markets today? Igor, can you take that one?
Sure. So what we see today is a dominance of the automotive in driving the technology, both from the automated driving systems and also from the aided driving systems. So we see that this market niche is driving a lot of the development, not only of the MEMS itself, but also of the MEMS test technology. And also on the industrial segment, we see the IoT and robotics that are driving pretty much the development of the MEMS sensors.
Thank you. Anyone have anything to add there?
Yes. Yeah, I think beside of the automotive, we definitely also see over the last years that especially consumer requirements are getting, sorry to say that, crazy high. So in some areas, they're even overstepping what automotive was requiring in the past. Automotive is always the temperature challenge, but I think especially with gyroscope sensors, we heard today a lot of MEMS sensors, those requirements are significantly growing over the last years, I would say, and driving technology to some degree.
I would like just only to add also a couple of points of reflection. One is the fact that a part of the MEMS side in regards to the automotive worlds. We touched in the presentation before also the power module, the electrifications of the automotive market in terms of engine control, save energy, that also requires not specifically only the power modules, but also the sensors that are related to the good monitoring of the performances of the systems. And this is growing as well, very tough and very steep in the next years. And it's also following what is the same trend of the MEMS, even if we see some, let's say, flatness on the demands, but I'm sure that they will be growing again very soon with new technology, with new accuracies that are required for the next generation MEMS devices. And that would be the final challenges for us to provide to our customer the proper stimulus units that will be, of course, improved in terms of quality, in terms of performances and accuracies to fulfill the request of these kind of sensors.
I might something about this. For the future, for sure, in the direction and the challenge that we have for the future is with the addition on the test equipment, on AI and ML, the main purpose that will be reached in the future will be for the MEMS, the capacity to calibrate automatically and to guarantee the accuracy. So will be a great challenge for the new generation of testing with adding the AE block at our test equipment.
Well, thank you. You know, as we saw today, a lot of the presentations had charts with data that was taken to prove that they were talking about something very cool, right? So we needed that data. So can you, you know, Alex, can you talk about a little bit about the range of operation, accuracy, resolution, and, you know, cost? What are the pain points of our customers in these regard?
Yeah. So backend testing in general is challenging. So that means you have the cost of test you mentioned, you want to do it high parallel, you don't want to have the backend test equipment failing, yield, all that stuff. So on top of that, for MEMS testing, you have an extra challenge, which is the physical stimuli with the accuracy you just mentioned. So that basically really drives a lot of things and is challenging to the customers and to us to not only make the system itself accurate, it's also excluding the disruptions. So we heard today a lot of signal-to-noise SNR points, and one key thing here is not just that the stimuli itself is very accurate, you also have to exclude the outside noise. If somebody walks by, you don't want to have your test result changing. For gyroscope sensors, we have customers, they even measured the movement of the building when a truck is driving by outside. So it's becoming really to a point where it's not only about the accuracy of the system, it's also the decoupling from the environment, which is a very challenging point.
Yeah, I fully agree about this point because of, in reality, we are talking about MEMS, so that means micromechanics sensors, and we know perfectly that it's very sensitive to vibrations. Any kind of MEMS sensor in particular, not only the microphones, but also pressures, for example. And this is exactly adding a new point of challenge whenever we are talking about a new generation of device with greater accuracy that brought, at the end of the day, to get rid about the external physical disturbances that could deteriorate the quality of the tests. Talking more on the pain, let's say the most difficult stimulus, that is the temperature as well from automotive, but also on the consumer range, what we see is that we get requests to increase the accuracy on the temperature, but in the same time to be more fast for soaking. And this is extremely challenging because of it's very critical itself. The thermal stimuli unit is not easy. There are a lot of hidden aspects that needs to be addressed. But if we are adding also the soak time that has to be very fast, very accurate, it will be becoming finally a very challenging topic that we have to address in the next future.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we also have to remember that we are trying to accomplish everything that my colleagues here discussed, while we are also driving lower costs. So that several times it means higher parallelism. That means more signals that are running in parallel on a setup. So more things to manage, more noise, more. So yeah, everything combined also with the push for driving the cost of test lower and lower and lower are the challenges that we have to face.
Good, thank you. It's, we see a lot of products that we make, but we have to make them in high volume, right? Otherwise, with the volume, we can get lower cost in many cases. So what are the barriers that are preventing the modularity and reusability of the test stimulus and package handling?
Yeah, this question, it's really, let's say, complicated the answer, because we have to think about the typology of MEMS sensors. Now we have, for example, pressure MEMS sensor, but also acoustic sensors like the microphones. So basically same architecture, but the stimuli unit is completely different. In one side we have to apply pressure. In the other side we have to stimulate the microphone with an accurate acoustic stimuli. And this is something that goes against the fact that we can reconfigure easily the equipments, because of while also the microphone requires to have very insulated and soundproofing structure of the test handler, in the other end the pressure sensor not. I would answer to this question particularly by telling that for example, MEMS sensor in regards to the pressure, or let's say generally talking about environmental sensor, then the modularity become to be, let's say, little bit easy, because of within the environmental sensor we have the pressure sensor, gas sensor, humidity sensor, temperature sensor, that more or less the architecture of the equipment could be kept common, and the stimuli units that you are using for testing those devices can be also modular. And this is our approach from our company profile to have the possibilities to provide scalable solutions, looking ahead into the future, especially because of the investment to build up an equipment for testing. It's still a value that has to be conserved over time, and by doing an architecture of the equipments that could be open for future upgrades for serving other sensors, I think and I believe that is the key. We cannot cross the straight lines to the whole families, to the whole MEMS sensor in general, but we have to work into a specific sector for which the MEMS sensor is conceived for. Like, for example, environmental sensor, the acoustic, we can have a scalable architecture for microphone, but also for speakers. And also the speakers are a little bit different from microphone, but could be also configured in a way that you can test both. That's the major challenge. So I think that also from equipment point of view, it's not easy to think about a common solution to be customized to serve in different MEMS topology, but I believe that at least for main purposes of the MEMS sensor, we can do something. Again, we are talking about the next generation, then there will be also additional challenges, accuracies, and also high volume production that still into the wall of the complete sphere represent really a challenge.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think that you had the opportunity to see some minutes later the answer that Spea gave to this question. My colleague Marco Pratillo gave a nice presentation on the modularity of the test cells that we produce. So I think that the answer to this question really lies in the word modularity. You don't need to think about a complete system dedicated to do one job. You can slice that system into its core components and then individualize only the portion of the stimulus. So in the study case that we've been doing, in the machines that we have installed on the field, almost 70% of the cost of the machines are composed by elements that can be used for the whole range of MEMS testing. And then you can just plug in a dedicated stimulus or design a dedicated stimulus in case you have some need that is really unique to the market, and reuse the other 70% of the cost, amortize that with running other types of packages of MEMS and so on. We see that this approach has a very nice value especially for OSATs, because the demands might go up and down depending on the market. We have consumer, for instance, that today is on a top trend and tomorrow it might go down. You can amortize the cost of the equipment by changing the production from one type of MEMS to another, just by changing the specific stimulus.
Thank you. Here's our really fun question. You know, we see, today we've seen this type of sensor and that type of sensor, but I think we see in the future that, you know, we're going to see Frankenstein integration with multiple, not just sensors, but other multiple devices in those Frankenstein packages. So where do you see the test equipment architectures able to handle that when we have those multiple sensors and processors, and as AI and machine learning proliferate and require those kinds of system and packages? Josefina, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, for sure. It's fun, Frankenstein, the definition. So for sure, the future of the test equipment will be integrated inside the AI and ML. The future of the test equipment will be integrated the chiplet inside the system. And thanks to this kind of new technology that will be inside the test equipment, we'll have for sure the possibility to reduce the latency and to develop inside the single task for the future generation of the test. Additional, we ready to have real-time all data and shared with, for sure, a lot of privacy that we can guarantee to everyone. But for sure, the future of the Frankenstein test equipment will be this new challenge for the new vendor for the test equipment.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it already. I think the future here is really, as we saw, it's the past was just a sensor, measure it, we have a digital or analog output, but it's becoming now much more integrated.
Exactly.
Multiple degrees of freedom, adding processors on top. We had discussions with customers.
Exactly, because of the single task
Exactly.
will be inside the single task.
I think down the road there might be AI. We heard that today, that systems are filtering the right data and not just forwarding all the data into the cloud or into the fog, as they call it. So I think there's really significant changes, and it's becoming more complex. So it's not just stimulating a single device, it's a logic, maybe even a processor test, which comes hand in hand with that. So I think that's the challenge for us, and
Yes.
we're happy to take that.
Yes.
Good. You know, that kind of segues into our other question. Like you said, you have processors and other types of sensors on those chips. And of course, the people that are doing design and the engineers that are doing the manufacturing, if the test has gone well and they have decided that this chip is good and good performing, or if there's something wrong with the chip and needs some help, how do you see the advanced processing where you feed back that information into the line, or even feed forward for the next test insertion, if there is another test insertion, either at the, call it back end, or even at the system board level? How do you see that? What are those strategies, you know? Because today we have functional, structural, and correct by construction strategies. How do you see those strategies working out in the future? Alex, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I can go ahead. So I think this is really an interesting question, because testing is cost. So in some of those areas, you found special patterns and clusters where you say, okay, when I'm behaving within that cluster, I can anticipate. That's, by the way, just for consumer, because automotive does not anticipate anything. Automotive means 100% testing. And that's best time 3 times, making sure that's really right. But for consumer, there are possibilities to cluster test, to also forward and backward feedback the test and say, okay, when we saw this parameter, we either need to change our stimuli, we maybe feedback that. We talked about the big data to the assembly process and say what can be done in order to get my test results back into my guard band. And I think that's certainly big data challenges. It's not just it's a good or a bad one. It has to do more on how we communicate those data downstream to the process in order to change parameters which might affect the tests at the end of the day.
That's right. That's it. All right. So good answer. Thank you. So we do see that function. Today we have the functional, structural, and correct by construction. But we do see significant proliferation of feedback into the process, and also feeding forward to the next insertion. So with adaptive testing and adaptive binning, where the condition that we're testing in may have been adjusted based on what we had told the factory to do coming up. So good. All right. Well, you guys got a couple of easy questions, so that was good.
Yes,
Let's
easy
see.
Question.
We have a couple minutes, so let's see what we have in the audience.
Lead time.
Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
I have a comment about the previous question. So most of the time in MEMS testing, I don't have any problem in assembly or wafer. I have the problem with the tester itself. Because, for example, a particle is under the nest that is measured, that is streaming the sensor. And if we can use AI to discover this pattern and the motor rotates, then this particle falls out. And it means a lot of cost effectiveness because I don't need to wait for a week of mass production to rework these materials. So what we need is also a kind of AI integration to make the tester itself smarter.
Exactly. This is, sorry that I interrupt you on the question, but maybe I understood your point. Consider that for the future, the testing, the tester will have integrate inside the predictive. So means that in case you have a fail in a die for certain reason, for example, for the sensor, because the trim doesn't work properly, the next time that you have this kind of error, the tester itself
Yes.
knows this. So this is the future of the testing with the AI integration to reduce the problem that you have with the tester.
Yes, and I also think that the tester can become a little bit smarter, especially the handler of the tester, so that when there is some contacting issue, then the tester can try to calibrate and correct itself so that we can get less yield loss, and at the end it is for the benefit of everyone.
So
I'm a dreamer, I'm
I'll invite you to come.
It's a long question.
Yeah. So SPEA has some developments on those on that line of thought that you put. So we also came to that conclusion that there are several idle times during production or during engineering. So you have the lot exchanging in wafer probing, or if you are in final test, you are moving components from the output, from the test area to the output binning, moving other components in. The tester is there, sitting idle, doing nothing. And we identified that, that opportunity to improve, and we are enabling the tester to run portions of calibration and diagnostic and calibration during those idle times. So that way, we have the system up and running and running at the highest level of its stage as possible. And we are running towards a future where the tester doesn't need downtime to be calibrated. So this is already something that we envisioned as an opportunity. The architecture of our ATE enables this kind of approach, of solution. And we just released 1 or 2 months ago the patch to our operating system enabling this kind of stuff.
Yeah, maybe just to add, I think that the key really is to increase the productive time of the test cell. So calibration is something you must do, so it's absolutely good that you can use the time. But as you said before, for those examples where you have contamination inside the socket, there is, of course, always first to sense that. So our handlers in general, I think, have a lot of vision capabilities to detect such failures. That's one thing. The other thing is, of course, can the tester then start identifying problems? We are starting with PDM, predictive maintenance, which is kind of AI-based to some degree, where we predict not only on a failure, but on the behavior of movements and anticipate based on those data a potential failure down the road. So this AI is definitely becoming more and more a part of, I think, in general, into our handling systems over time.
Good question. Thank you. Any more questions from the audience? Well, okay. Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you for our panelists.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.